Okay, thanks everybody for joining us. So this month in our drone meetup, we're going to look at the ATAK Part 2. So what I'm going to do is kind of focus on the TAK server. Last month we did the plugin, so we looked at the massive Hello World plugin, which if anybody hasn't looked at it, please do. The Toyin folks, which there's a link in last month's slides, just did a really excellent job of putting it all together and showing you how to make it work. Really, really good stuff. So this month, what I'm going to do is look at the TAK server. So let me just get started with my slides, because I think a lot of people get confused about that. And then most of the things that I've seen before on the TAK server side have tended to be on installing TAK server. And I'm not really going to talk about installing TAK server. I'm going to completely bypass that. And I'm just going to use SITX because it's really easy to use. And what I want to do is I want to focus on how do you communicate with the TAK server so that you can send messages so that everybody can see them, which I think is probably one of the most important things. So as per usual, what I usually do is I talk a little bit about the news. So and then we'll talk about how this all fits together, how TAK server works, and then I'm basically just going to do a slimmed down version of an application that we wrote for a US Ignite competition, which was taking IoT sensor data and then taking that and publishing it to the TAK server, which could then be read by multiple ATAK, WinTAK, ITAK, whatever you got. So the news, so we're up to about 600 members. We were kind of over it, but then there was some people in there who were not real people, so I killed them and we're just below it again. Next month is commercial UAV, so that's on when I typically do this talk. Somebody trying to get in. Okay, so that's usually when we do the talk. I had to delay this month because I was I went to visit somebody in New York, and then I couldn't get back on the Sunday, and I was stuck there till Tuesday evening, so I couldn't get back to do it in time. So my apologies for anybody who was trying to get on that time. Great that the mic is recording this so that if somebody misses this, that they can catch up with it later. And because I had really good fun doing this one. And so commercial UAV is on next month, so I don't know what I'm going to do next month. I might skip it. If I can think of something really cool to do before the show, I'll probably do it. And then the other thing that I want to point out, which is kind of relevant for what we're talking about today, is that there's the TAK offsite, which happened a couple of months back, maybe a month ago, which is kind of defense orientated. And then there's a CivTAK conference, which is going to be on at the start of October in Washington, D.C. So I'm really looking forward to that because I went last year. It was pretty cool. It was just for a day last year. So now it's for a few days. So it sounds like it's growing. So that's definitely something if you're interested in this. I'm hoping to speak at that, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing these talks. It's a kind of prep to see if I can do a session or not. Okay, so I'm not going to go too much into TAK because we did talk about it last month, but basically ATAK's developed by the US Air Force in the early 2000s to improve situational awareness. So basically trying to get over the issue of friendly fire and all that sort of thing because you know where everybody is. We did talk about the ATAK to ATAK communication last month. But I think one of the coolest things about ATAK is the TAK server, because essentially, yes, you can have a mesh where all the ATAKs talk to each other, but you can also do things like send information to the TAK server, and then the TAK server will broadcast that to the rest of the clients, which can be ATAK, can be WinTAK, can be ITAK, like I said. And also you can do things like intercept the data. You can save the data. You can do reporting on the data. You can do machine learning on the data. A lot of times people do machine learning on the edge, but there's no reason why we can't take the data and collect it at the TAK server and do some cool stuff with it there too as well. If you didn't see last month's, I recommend going back and have a look at it because I was having fun with the Hello World template and also the plugin template where we did a very small Mav SDK plugin, which was just basically giving you the telemetry data from a headless gazebo and then just displaying it out on ATAK. So if you're interested in plugins, I recommend starting there. I also recommend the Toyin website. All the resources are in last month's, and all the resources that I use today will be in this month's at the end of the slides. So this is really where we are. So we basically have kind of a more traditional client-server architecture. So we have a centralized ATAK server, and then any changes or markers dropped or IoT sensor data or whatever you're reading would get sent to the server and then sent to your connected audience. And so kind of improving the situational awareness. You can also do things like have a federated server, so you can have multiple servers. You can have servers of servers. So I'm not really going to get into that. Might do that at a later stage. I realize that just taking the path of least resistance and going for syntax is kind of skipping some of important stuff if people want to configure the server. So I'm pretty sure I'll do a TAK server from scratch, maybe the free TAK server, to show how to get that up and running. But for the moment, I really just wanted to show what we did with Node-RED, and just explain what cursor on target messages are, that sort of thing. I'm more of a software developer guy than I am for a network guy. So always when I do the network stuff, always when I look at these things, I always tend to go to my favorites, which is, hey, I want to play with the software rather than fire up a new network. So if somebody else is going to take the burden, it's great for me. So what are the key features of the TAK server? Well, this is kind of the data management part, which we're talking about. So we have a centralized storage of mission data. You can get real-time updates and synchronization. You can send messages from all walks of life. So I'm talking about IoT sensors, but obviously it can come from other ATAK users or WinTAK users. So whatever data that you can collect that you can send to the TAK server, then that's really cool, because then you can send that information to whoever wants to consume it. One of the things that we're working on at the moment is trying to see if we can get some remote ID information and display it on a TAK server, using pretty much the same thing as what I'm going to show you tonight. So communication and collaboration is great. So it facilitates communication between the different TAK clients, supports text, voice, and video communications. And then huge deal is security. So if you set up your own server, you're responsible for all the security. It's another reason why I was trying to go for the syntax route. I don't work for PAR, although now Booz Allen anyway. But I just use it because it's a relatively cheap way of getting it set up. In my mind, as a business owner, I can either pay a developer for a week to set up the server, or I'm just going to sign up for an annual subscription for one of the servers out there. And that just seems to be, like I said, the easiest way to get up and running. And they take care of all the security, so you'll get encrypted data transmission. And then the other reason that you're using a TAK server is because you want to have some sort of access control. So maybe there's multiple groups of users, and some of the users are going to get some information, and some of the other users are going to get different information. So you can start to separate out that stuff. Okay. So what are the different components? So we have databases, we have APIs, and we have plugins. And then essentially what happens is that we either have the ATAK communicate with the TAK server, or what I'm going to show you today is basically I have a fake message cursor on target. So essentially that's what we do, is we send a cursor on target message to the TAK server, and then the TAK server takes that information and then broadcasts to the client. The TAK server, because it's been around for a while, so I went looking for the cursor on target documentation. The cursor on documentation goes all the way back to 2009, which doesn't sound like a long time ago, but in the age of software development, that's eons ago. So the data was being sent in, that's kind of a couple of years after the iPhone came out, a couple of 3 years, certainly since the App Store came out. And then the information was being sent in XML. So kind of XML is not really a format we use that much anymore. So a lot of what I'm going to do tonight is we'll just create a JSON message, and then convert that to XML, and then that's sent as a COP message to the TAK server, and the TAK server will display it. So the deployment models, well, I'm using cloud-based one today, but you can certainly do it on premises. And then for people who are trying to manage scalability, because if you've got thousands and thousands of users on this, if you've got a whole if a large city or large NFL game or big emergency, you want to make sure that the ATAK server doesn't get out so that people don't go blind. So you want to make sure that you have federated servers, and all that's possible with the ATAK server. So this is what the SITX server looks like. We could spend kind of a whole hour walking through how to set up a ATAK server. Instead, we're just going to use SITX, and SITX stands for Situational Awareness Tool, which is from PAR, which is now sold to Booz Allen. They recently got bought. I'm pretty sure we'll return to this in the future. We look at setting up our own ATAK server. But for now, I'm just going to take the path of least resistance and let somebody else worry about it. Walk you through that a little bit later. But for the moment, that's basically what we're going to do. So I just have a couple of users set up. I've got a training group set up. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so what are best practices? Just the obvious things that you would do for any network if you're doing this on your own. So make sure you have regular updates and patches. Make sure you got role-based access control for whatever data you have. Make sure there's regular backups, kind of a efficient archiving, being able to roll back whatever changes you do, and then load balancing and resource allocation. I was talking to somebody about load balancing today for an e-commerce application that we might be working on. I've worked on large systems since back in the late 90s. So, there are lots of ways to set up load balancers. Haven't really set up one with a ATAK server, but I can't see any reason why it wouldn't be any difference from setting an e-commerce server. So there's lots of stuff out there for large scale organizations if you want to be able to manage thousands and thousands of users. Not really what we're talking about today, but the opportunities are there if you need to do it. So what's our goal? So it's pretty basic. So we're going to send a message to ATAK, and we're going to talk about what that message is and how that's put together, and then we're going to get it to display on multiple ATAKs. Really straightforward. So I wanted to show you this because this is where the original idea for all this stuff came from. So this is Disaster City in Texas A&M, just outside Texas A&M. And what we were doing was part of competition with US Ignite and NIST. And we were taking IoT data. There's a weather sensor there, and you're going to see a whole bunch of fire alarms go off here. So the way that this worked is each of the IoT sensors were sending a MQTT message, which is coming from the IoT devices, and then that was sent to an MQTT broker, and then that went through a pretty interesting architecture using Kafka and Apache and lots of other things. But basically, what we were doing in its most simplest was we were taking a message from one of these IoT sensors, and then we were sending that to the SITX server, and then as a COP message, and then the SITX server was basically taking that message and sending to the clients. I'm pretty sure that we'll return to this because there's always something else that we can do, and every time that we've talked about it to different first responders, I always seem to get other ideas. So the latest one that we're trying to think of is how can we get remote ID information in so we can just display it. But this was great because we won joint first in the prize. I thought it was really entertaining, a great way to get started. So for today, just to simplify things, what I'm going to do is I just have 2 Android clients. So there are 2 call signs. There's Beatty, who is me. This is where I'm broadcasting from tonight. And then there's Bandwagon, which is the developer, Craig, who helped me with a lot of this stuff over the last few days just to get it back up and running. So we're simulating the information coming from him. So it's a timestamp. This is coming from me, from Beatty. So it's a timestamp message with a UID of whatever, 11112. And then the top image is a different user, Bandwagon, who is also connected to the same TAC and can see Beatty, and they see his message. So you see how we would basically use this for making sure that whatever IoT data was coming in, that we'd be able to pass it to multiple people. We've used some of the same tech stack, Node-RED in particular. Shout out to Greg Albrecht, who helped me set this up a long time ago for the US Ignite competition. And he's done some plugins for Node-RED, which are really useful for what we're trying to do today. And but a lot of the MQTT broker stuff we just ripped out, just to kind of simplify things for this evening. So what do we need to do to set up? So how do you get SIDX set up on your Android phone? So the first thing that you need to do is you need to install the ATAK app itself from Google Play. URL is at the end, so at least I think it is, but if it's not, I'll add it later on. So install the ATAK plugin from Google Play if you haven't already. I'm not using any custom plugins, so this should be fine. One of the reasons I didn't do the developer plugins tonight was because the developer version of ATAK didn't work very well with SIDX, so I just went back to using the vanilla one that comes on Google Play. Second thing that you need to do is you need to install the SIDX app. So you go to Google Play again to install the SIDX app. You log into the SIDX application with your credentials that you log into the SIDX, the ATAK server. And then you go on the content folder, which is this one here. And then there's going to be a download Android configuration file. You download the configuration file, and then you go back to the ATAK app, and then you import the configuration file. Just point it to the download directory as a zip file, and then you're automatically connected to the ATAK server, to the SIDX servers, which is, you know, very, very simple in comparison to how I've done it when I set up my own ATAK server. Okay, so anyone who is using ATAK would need to be user on SIDX for this to work. So this is just the two of us guys. This is me, and this is Craig, who was helping me out do this. So I am Beatty, and this is Bandwagon. We can set up groups. I will go through, there's a little bit extra that we need to do here later on, but I'll get back to it in a second. Okay, so this is my message pipeline. So we're going to use Node-RED to send the data to the server. So we'll send our timestamp in a JSON format. And this is obviously a really simple pipeline. So we inject our cop message, which is in JSON, which is sent to the ATAK node, which then sends the XML cop messages to the SIDX adapter. And the SIDX adapter is how we get connected to the ATAK server. So that sends it to the ATAK server, and then the ATAK server gets its XML cop message, and it just broadcasts it to all clients. And then I just have a little debug thing here in Node-RED, just to make sure that I can see if anything's gone wrong, just to get some of the error messages. So how do we create our message pipeline? So the first thing we need to do is we need to configure Android phones. We've just done that, so that's pretty cool. We need to install Node-RED, which is our kind of IDE that we're going to use to be able to send this information. We need to install the ATAK and SIDX bridge adapter Node-RED module. So within Node-RED, we have to add a couple of extra modules to make sure that this all works together. We have to manually go into Node-RED and create our message pipeline, which is this. So basically what you do is you right-click and say Node, and then choose inject ATAK and SIDX. And they should show up. If they don't show up, you haven't installed the modules. Create the message pipeline. Then we need to configure the SIDX bridge adapter. So pretty straightforward. I'll show you where the URL is. I'll show you how to get it down and do everything together. I have pretty extensive instructions on how to do this if you want to follow this. I went through it 3 or 4 times in the last few days and fixed all the stuff, so should be okay. You create your JSON message. We'll explain how the cop message works, and just at a very high level. And then we send that to ATAK, and then it should get, if all goes well, which I'm going to see if I can do a demo today. The demo gods, if they're good to me, we should be able to show it using Android Studio, and then using the Node-RED. And then if all goes well, it'll be displayed on the ATAK. Okay, so install Node-RED and the bridge adapter. So in order to install Node-RED, you have to do npm, which is node. So node package manager install Node-RED, git clone from this URL, create and update settings.js. So there's a settings.js file, which is all the settings. I'll show you that in a second. And then we create a current IoT flow.js. So basically what you do is you just create an empty file. And then as you do your pipeline, it's basically going to fill up the current IoT flow.js for you. To start Node-RED, you do Node-RED and point it at the settings file. And then we want to make sure that we do npm install for the Node-RED adapter to make sure that the SITX bridge adapter is installed so that we can get the SITX adapter to talk correctly to the SITX server. And if that works, we should be able to get our stuff up and running. Okay, I wanted to show you a few things. So I have this instructions because there's a lot more than what I said, but I don't want to bore you to death with all the commands that we have to do. So here's the list of commands to go from scratch. So it's on a Windows machine, which is where I'm setting this up. You could certainly do it on a Linux machine. You could certainly do it on a Mac, no big deal. But what I'm using is this WSL, which is the Linux version that you have within Windows. So if you're running Windows 10 or Windows 11, you've already got it set up. If you haven't, you just do WSL -- install, and then it installs the Linux for you. And you can start to, once you open it, you can run all these commands. You basically got an entire Linux environment to play around with. I always find, like I said, I'm a software guy. I'm not a network guy. So, and I'm not a huge fan of running Linux on a laptop. So, like everybody else, like 90% of the world, I'm probably going to be running Windows. So I wanted to go for the biggest audience. There's no reason you couldn't do this on a Mac or on a Linux box. But if somebody wants to do it and play around, chances are they're on Windows. So this is all you need to do to get everything set up in glorious detail for what, you need to install Python 3.6. I think we're up to 3.12. I would follow all these examples to the nth degree and not change anything. You got to make sure that you're using Java 8. And then, walking down, you're going to git clone, which means that you're going to get the code from here, which is the Node-RED SITX bridge adapter, and get it set up. The other thing you need to do is we need to go to the SITX. So where is my SITX? So here's my SITX here. And if I go to count settings, there's bridge adapter here. The instructions here will tell you how to basically install the bridge adapter. So you have to go to count settings, bridge adapter, and then you should be able to see it within there, which is what I see, which is what we have right here. Okay, and it has an access key and a secret key, which we're going to need later on too as well, because basically what we do is we have our SITX bridge. This is one side of the bridge, and then we have the other side of the bridge. So we basically have to take our access key and our secret key and put it into Node-RED so that we can, have our two parts talking together, the bridge, in other words. Okay, so this is what we have, and then we have a settings.js file. So this is, we pull up, all of this is I've made shareable to everybody. So this is the settings.js file. The only thing you have to worry about is making sure that whatever your user directory is the same user directory here, and then everything should work fine. But that's the only thing that you'd have to change. Okay. I won't go down to the rest of it yet. Let's just stop there. Okay, so if that works, then if I want to start it, I'm doing sudo because WSL doesn't have a lot of permissions. Sudo means super user, do as super user. So we're just going to start that. And then if everything goes well, then we're up and running. Now I have my Node-RED running here. So hopefully this is going to work. Here's one I created earlier. So this is, and the way that you do it is you basically right click it, you say insert node, and then you choose what your node is, whether it's inject, or whether it's ATAK, or whether it's SITX. Okay, and then it should be the first one. Node-RED's kind of funky though, so don't be surprised if you have to do it a few times. The other thing that you want to do is when you're doing this, is you want to make sure that you have installed the proper node. So when you start off, you will have the proper modules, excuse me. So you'll have Node-RED that's installed, but you want to make sure that you have this Node-RED contrib SITX bridge adapter, Node-RED contrib TAK, and then in order to do that, you go install and you just search for TAK or whatever it is, and it's going to find things for you there. So see there, it's already installed. So you make sure that's installed. every time, here's the newbie things that happen. So you got to make sure that you deploy it every time that you make a change. And that's really the other thing. And this is the debug. So we have the debug here. If you want to see, these are the COP messages that are going to the Google Pixel 7. That's where it actually went. So if you get stuck, you can see in there what happened. And yeah, stuff gets stuck all the time. So pretty useful. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a timestamp that we're going to inject here. It's going to go, that's JSON. It's going to go to TAK. TAK is going to convert it to the XML COP message, which is going to go to the SITX adapter, and that's what talks to, that's our bridge basically, which talks to the SITX server. Yeah, this happens all the time where it goes up and down. But it's connected again. You can see the error messages here. Oh, it didn't come back. Okay, SITX bridge has been closed. Okay, so retrying. But you know, this is not a production thing, so I'm not really too worried about it. Usually it comes back up again. Let me go back to my stuff. Okay, so like I said, we make sure that you've installed the Node modules that you need to install, or libraries. The two that you need are SITX bridge adapter and Node-RED contrib TAK. Then go in and manually create, right-click and insert the following node. So you need an inject, which is where we're going to send our JSON message. We need a TAK, we need a SITX adapter, and debug. Don't be surprised every time that you go in here, it kind of tries to connect back to itself, but just, you know, you'll get used to it after a while. And eventually you'll figure out how to do it. And then to connect to the SITX bridge adapter, we need to find the access key ID and the secret key, and then enter them into Node-RED. So where do you find this? And the other, so you need, okay, there's three things you need. So you need the access key ID, you need the secret key, and you need the what is called the group URI, so the URL for the group. So with the three of those things, you can configure the SITX bridge adapter in the Node-RED to make sure that it's talking backwards and forwards to the TAK server. So the way you do that is you go into the node, you click on the SITX bridge adapter node. It's going to pop up these four fields. So you put in whatever the name is, whereas it would be Reese, whatever the group URI was this one, and then the access key and the secret key. And if your secret key is given away, you can always regenerate it. So another nice little security thing. All right, so we have everything set up. So we are here where we have our four things set up. So we're not sending anything yet because I haven't put any JSON message in there. So I want to have a JSON message that is going to send just a simple timestamp. So what is that going to look like? So how do I get it in there first? So the first thing I need to do is I double click on inject. You can see that it's highlighted here. You click the download. It's not really that obvious when I started it, but if you click the download here, it's going to show the different types. You just choose JSON because that's what we're going to enter, and then you click the three dots here, and it lets you put in your JSON, and then your JSON looks like this. So what on earth is this? So what can we see in here? So the obvious things are there's a timestamp. For some reason, I think it's the 23rd. What are the most important things? The most important things, okay, the version number is 2. The UID has to be unique every time. So that's the newbie thing. Every time that we do this, you got to make sure that you didn't send this, whatever the number is. It can be anything. The type, and then the time, start, and stale date, basically when it expires. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just basically going to send a marker, which I went to Google Maps, look to see where I am right now, and then put in the lat long as close as I could to where I am, so I could, or slightly off it, so I could just send a thing. Okay, let me see. So I was trying to figure out what all these things meant, because I've basically been copying other people's examples for a long time. So the top level root element is the event. So this is the event that we're actually communicating. The version is the schema version of the event instance. The UID is a global unique identifier for the event. So that can be anything, but it has to be unique. So you can't send it multiple times. So we have a type, a hierarchically organized string that provides a hint about the event type. And then we have the timestamp, start date, stale date. We could put in some detail, so we could hold additional information, maybe extensions on the COT schema. cursor on target. And then the point here is we're passing in lat long. HAE is height above ellipsoid, CE is circular error, and LE is linear error, but I'm really not interested in them at the moment. I'm just trying to do this. You can put other things as well. You can put in icon sets. You can say what icon you're going to send. And then the best information I could find for this, if I can find it, I don't know if I put it up there, is this PDF, which comes from 2009. And just basically goes through the different schemas. Obviously, I said all of this is going to be XML messages. A lot in here. So, but you know, same thing as what we see before. But I was showing you as JSON. I wasn't showing you as XML. So it will tell you what the different, what you need to do for the different types to give it hints. Huge amounts of information here. These days, I basically throw this to ChatGPT and just ask ChatGPT about it, and that works really well. And then it'll give me an XML or it'll give me a JSON. So usually that's what I do. I just ask it to create my cut message in JSON, and away you go. And actually, there's probably no reason why you couldn't ask it to do it in XML too, and that would be perfectly fine. And we could skip a step. Okay, so now we have our pipeline. So assuming everything is okay, if we click on inject to send the cut message to ATAK to convert it to XML and select adapter to send it to the server, we should then be able to send it to the clients. So I am going to start up Android Studio, get out of this for a second, because I want to be able to show you every time that I run ATAK, I always run it on a physical device. I don't want to be running it on the emulator, because I've had problems in the past. So if you're going to run it, it's on a physical device. So I have a Pixel 7 phone that's connected to my laptop. Let me just show you what it looks like now. If it comes up. I don't care about this. I just want to mirror the device. So this is my device. So this is me. This is Beatty. This is my house in Metro Detroit area. Can we make that a bit smaller? Let's get rid of this because I don't need that. Okay. So there's my mirrored version of the Google Pixel that I have. I'm going to go into Node-RED. I'm going to click on inject. So here's where you choose whether it's JSON or anything else. Here's the actual data. Let me just update this to 4. And then UBR, always forget deploy. It's got a little error, communication error. Now it's connected again. We do inject. And hopefully, if it all worked out, there, you can see it. Okay, let's make it bigger again. So now you can see my 11114 is now here. So yay, we now have communication from Node-RED to the ATAK server, and then it will go to, from the ATAK server, it will go to my ATAK, and that's going to multiple ATAKs. So I'm sure when Craig opens up his thing, he'll see the same thing. He'll see the 114 here. He was really helpful yesterday because apparently I got dyslexia when I put in lat long, and I was putting it into Lake Michigan somewhere, so he figured out what was going wrong. So thank you, Craig. Really appreciate it. Okay, so what else do we have? So we have some resources. So we have the Expo UAV, which is, that's the wrong one. Commercial UAV, that's coming up. So if anybody needs a pass to the exhibition, we're one of the exhibitors, so I've got plenty of those. I think I've got 99. Don't think I've ever run out of those at all. CivTech Conf, registration's open. I don't think the speakers have been announced yet. But yeah, looks really cool. This is where the bridge adapter is, if you want to pull this down. Really easy to set up. So, you know, this stuff is, a lot of times when people talk about TAK, it seems to have this real mystery about it, which the whole goal of the last 2 months was to try and demystify everything that we were trying to do. And I think between the Hello World plugin and just the way the configuration that we have this evening, I think it's pretty straightforward if you want to start playing with COP messages to be able to set this up. If anybody has issues or anything at all, I am more than happy to talk about this stuff. I seem to be talking about it all the time. We're doing a couple of ATAK implementations at the moment. This is, I made this share to everybody, so if you want to click on this, that's there too as well. This is the example COP message. I put in some stuff about user icons. I'll probably change that next day or two just to make it better than just that simple silly little dot that I have. Maybe put it in as a drone. So it will be closer to what we're doing as a, because this is a drone meetup, not just a ATAK meetup. And then the last thing that we have here is we have this MITRE thing, which is our cursor on target message router user's guide. This is the only one I can find. If anybody knows if there's an up-to-date one, because this is the one, like I said, from, look at this. Wow. Hey, it's the 90s. We want our Windows 95 application. Yeah, so I haven't seen one of those in a while. So like it's November 2009. So if anybody knows if there's an up-to-date one, I'd really like to know. That's and honestly, that's about it. So my goal is to basically take this information now and then talking to some people about trying to get some remote ID information in here. And I think that would be a nice little TAC server Node-RED setup. And there's no reason why we can't get MQTT information from multiple sources, but that's probably the next one we're going to do. Has anybody got any questions? I might have an official document that's public distro, but I'll have to, that would be really cool, Levi. There was one other thing that came up from last month, which I thought was probably worth passing on. For the CivTAC that's on GitHub, I was using the SDK that is 4.x. And somebody pointed out to me very nicely, one of our members, that the 5.x version is available on tac.gov. So if you've got a license for tac.gov, you can just log in and get the 5.x version, because we always want to use the latest and greatest. And I did hear a rumor that I think it was on Discord that the GitHub version is not going to be updated. So you always want to be on the 5.x if such exists. So anybody who's got any information on this stuff, yeah, please let me know and I'd be happy to pass it around. Okay, apart from that, that's it. I hope this was useful. I'll let you guys, I missed the first ATAK chat. Is there a link to access that? Yes, there is, AB. It is on our YouTube channel. So if you go to reese.com and click on YouTube, you can see all of the drone meetups and all of the Gen AI meetups that we've done. All the drone ones have been going on for about 2 years now. So just check the last one. If you can't find it, here, oh, it's on the blog too. So if you go to reese.com, there's the blog, and then there's the YouTube. Yeah. And then if anybody's any other ideas about where to take this next. Otherwise, hopefully see you at the CivTAC conference in DC, or maybe early next month at Commercial UAV. Stop by our booth and say hi. All right. Hey, Mike, can you hang around when you're done? Thanks, everybody.